On over to our casters, Atlas and Wolf, for the call.
Thank you so much, Dagon, and of course, the Valdanalist and Orcs. Man, I missed the Valdanalist, didn't you, Wolf?
Of course I did. We get enough of him off camera, but now he gets to take to the stage.
Exactly.
This is a hype matchup to start things off. Now, we're on a new patch. We're going to see what these two teams' reads are on the meta. Not a surprise to see the ban on Faker's Azir. When it's a new patch, when it's a new meta, Faker has been able to lean on this pick, even in his weakest moments over the last year. Senna, also a pick that has been so strong, especially in the LCK. Removed. The Rumble, still top tier, untouched on this patch. No big surprises just yet.
Yeah, the Nidalee, though, is a little bit of a surprise to me, Wolf, just because we know Owner did earn his Nidalee card, but the pick is very up and down, and Shun is an incredible Nidalee player. So an interesting ban there, of course. Kalista, a slight tap on this patch, but felt a little bit cosmetic, not necessarily something that we really need to worry about, and still something to be taken away from both Gumayusi or Keria,
Now, with Rumble removed here, the Skarner pick is still very strong. We talked about how it's been nerfed, but it hasn't really been. Yeah, it's been. You got to take that one away. The Skarner pick hasn't necessarily been a pick that we're expecting to drop off massively in priority. The Zyra going to come in here super early, but this leaves open the Tristana. But considering neither Tristana nor Corki has been banned, you can kind of handshake these two very strong AD mid lanes here. So T1 can get their pick of the litter. I'm leaning towards Tristana for them. I think it's the stronger of the two at the moment in terms of the utility it gives you around the map, the ability to split push turrets, grab plate gold. T1 gonna, though, opt into the Corki instead here for Faker.
Yeah, why not both? I mean, theoretically, you could just take both of them away. Obviously, Corki and Tristana are the 280 carries in the mid lane that you'd really want. Lucian is kind of there, but we know that he's not necessarily a favorite and hasn't found too much of that success. As Owner is just cycling through a few choices here. We'll see where he lands. Of course, Sejuani does feel pretty Owner at this point in time, but up against the Zyra, you're never going to match that clear speed. And we know Shun absolutely loves just playing AP jungle. He's played a lot of games of Brand, really has sort of embraced this new jungle meta that a lot of junglers have been enjoying a lot more than just pick a tank and have fun.
Now, this Jinx potential pick would have been interesting. We've seen it a little bit in the LCK. Now, interesting, Knight is going to pick the Tristana, which isn't a surprise to us given this meta right now. However, Knight hasn't played any games of Tristana domestically, and a lot of people are saying this is not a strong meta for him. 80 carries in the mid lane hasn't really been his forte. He's even shied away from it, played the Hui, even played the Malzahar in the mid lane. But the Ezreal pick is right now the S-tier, top-tier pick for Elk in the bottom lane. Even though Ezreal used to be historically a relatively fragile early game champion, his stats have been buffed so significantly that he wins almost every lane right now. He's great in team fights later on. And I want to see what T1 have in terms of the answer. It's Zeri, and Guma domestically has shied away from this pick so much, but this season in particular, he's played it a ton. I actually got the opportunity to sit down with him and interview him. He talked about how he's actually really been working on improving his Zeri. He never felt like he was weak on it, but wasn't that comfortable. He's really put the hours in, and in a meta where it's so important, he's going to pull it out in the very first game here against BLG.
Yeah, I think if they didn't have, like, if you didn't have the context of that interview, Wolf, I think it would have been one of these times where we're groaning along with a lot of the T1 fans that don't necessarily like Gumayusi Zeri as much as some of his other more famous picks. Of course, Varus getting a little bit of a change on this patch. Not going to see him in this game. We'll see whether he does crop up in this tournament as well. But jumping into the next round of bans, we'll see what's going to be taken away, because already both of these compositions are shaping up a little bit differently. Obviously, we can see 280 carries, one for the mid lane, one for the bottom lane, pretty standard these days, but it's a tank in the jungle for T1, and it is the Zyra in the jungle for BLG, meaning that we could see some of these explosive early games and possible time for BLG to try and capitalize, as they've already taken away the Rakan. Of course, Xayah as well, getting a little bit of a buff on this patch, and there goes the Alistar.
It's interesting to see the Rakan ban in response to the Alistar, because the Alistar kind of indicated to me that perhaps they were going to look for a Leona lock-in here and then save that counter pick for Zeus. But instead, it's going to be a Rakan ban, so BLG definitely have different ideas about what Keria is going to be locking here in R4. The Renekton is taking away a very strong pick right now. Lulu, pretty self-explanatory with what you can do with the Zeri to boost her up, so later on you actually have a ton of combat stats in those late-game team fights. But also, the ability to then set up engages with the Sejuani. But as I expected, Curry is just going to go ahead and lock in that Leona. Feels like he gets this one for free. I think BLG definitely had a different read on how that bottom lane was going to go. Now, Skarner and Cassante, the two big top lane picks that are still left up and available here for Bin and Zeus. It looks like he's leaning towards the Cassante here. Very strong with the Tristana. Double 80 carry meta we're in. Gonna lock in this Nautilus first, thinking about that top pick a little bit more, because we know Zeus loves to play range top into Cassante. Even if the Skarner pick is considered higher tier, you might see something like the Twisted Fate. To combat that, the Jax here potentially, he was hovering the Gnar. BLG looked like they're a little bit worried about this counter pick. They haven't made the decision yet. That's why they locked the Nautilus first. And they're really giving this one a lot of thought, but it looks like it will be the Cassante in the end. And I would not be surprised if Zeus is happy to lock in the Twisted Fate in response. Even the Gnar, potentially.
Yeah, we'll see what it is actually going to be. I would have loved it if it was the Jax, because then we get Jax versus Gragas, and we get to see Zeus on his Gragas. Because that has been a pretty key pick in the LCK as far as the counter pick to the Jax is concerned. We know Bin probably doesn't care about counter pick whatsoever. His Jax is just absolutely terrifying. But he's going to be taking the Cassante this time as Zeus. All right, okay, so we've heard about the 280 carry meta. What about the 380 carry meta, Wolf? Because that's not even Vayne, that's Space Vayne.
Yeah, well, we'll see what ends up happening here, because this is about to get wild, and it does look like it's going to be Faker playing the Kai'Sa in mid lane, Corki going to the bottom lane.
Wait, no, surely not. That can't be it. That can't be what's actually happening.
I think it might be Atlas, because...
Really?
Yeah.
Zeus?
Because
what's happening here?
Zeus will be able to outrange the Cassante, and obviously this is a pick no one has seen in the top lane before.
You're a genius, Wolf, because you get all outed over a wall,
and you just go back.
You skid over the wall again. You're like, bye, Cassante, thanks for the
Zeri loves to interact with the shields. She's going to have a great time in this matchup. Range advantage going to the Zeri. You can have a lot of power with the Sejuani there as well, as Zeri's damage output is quite high. Mobility is strong, so you can actually roam to the mid lane as well pretty easily over those walls. It's a pretty unique draft here coming through from the side of T1. The Kai'Sa as well with the Corki. We've seen Corki flex to the bottom lane in the past, but not a lot of success. They ultimately decided to put Faker on the Corki mid. I think this makes a lot more sense than putting it bottom lane there. The Kai'Sa mid has been played and is getting a little bit more popular these days, but just so fragile into the Tristana. Felt like suicide to lock that one. So ultimately, going to be Zeri in the top lane. A new counter pick for Zeus. Kuma's on the Kai'Sa, so a lot of follow-up here to that strong engage they have with the Leona and the Sejuani.
Yeah, I'm really interested in how this one's going to go. It's been a long time. Well, I've never seen a Zeri in a solo lane before, Wolf, and it just was not something that was on my bingo card today. Of course, T1, they do like to experiment. They do like to do some crazy things, and I'm looking forward to seeing what Zeus can do. Because if you look back to Zeus's performances on range champions, he debuted on Gnar. His Gnar has been incredible, but at MSI, his Vayne was utterly terrifying. He was incredible on that champion, and now he's got another champion where you need extraordinarily high APM. So I just can't wait to see what's going to happen here in the very first game of the EWC. T1 already cooking, and honestly, everyone's cooking extraordinarily hot here, and it's really heating up the hot plate for T1. And here we are, onto the Rift for the very first game. Both teams making their way out now. And I just hope that we're glued to the top lane. That's all I want, Wolf. For this whole game, I just want to see how this one's going to go, see whether we get the all-out into Zeri skate away interactions. Or maybe Bin just says, don't stop it with the funny business. I mean, I'm just going to kill you. As Zeus has even taken the barrier just for as much lane control as possible.
Absolutely. On will be able to avoid the Zenith Blade here, but one thing I really like about this Zeri pick, or just any range top into this Cassante in general with this draft for T1, you mentioned it, the clear speed of the Zyra is going to be massively faster than what Owner can provide on this Sejuani, so you're going to need lane prio and a lot of control for Owner to make an impact in the lanes in the early game. The Zeri is definitely going to allow for that. The Kai'Sa lane with the Leona bottom lane also can be a power lane where you can get that advantage over the Ezreal, so it gives a ton of agency to otherwise very slow jungle pick here for Owner.
Looking forward to seeing what's going to happen here, as Owner was considering possibly crossing the river. A little bit dangerous as Faker is trading with Knight. You can see There are 3 members of BLG looking to go for a late invade towards Owner's jungle, and I don't think Owner has any idea what's going on here. We'll see that ward go down. Probably knows that something is up here as Elk and On moving into the Sejuani's jungle, and Owner is going to have to get out of there.
I mean, with Elk being up here, it's a lane swap, Atlas. So we're going to see here is On and Elk head topside. This is going to put Bin in utility position here to try to deny Owner the flash.
That's a big flash forward. A bit weird because Elk not there, but it doesn't actually matter. That's first blood going to On, taking matters into his own hands.
Now, this is wild here to start things off. Now, not going to be the Zeri matchup into the K'Sante after all, with the lane swap coming through here. And it's just going to be Zeus backing away, but this is going to be a horrible start here for Owner in the jungle. We'll just go straight over to his blue buff, and Ben decides to back and teleport to the bottom lane. As you can see, already some damage done to that turret by Guma and Keria, but the Kai'Sa isn't going to wreck turrets too quickly as, whoa!
Yeah, Keria already taken a bit of damage here, but they're just going to claim themselves a kill as Bin possibly regretting the teleport option.
Yeah, well, that's a huge win here for T1 on the other side. So 2 big wins back to back, and then the momentum is now shifted. Now with the turret shots taken here at level 1, Guma and Keria will have to back immediately. Won't be able to push this advantage further. And with the lane swap coming through here, Zeus just trying to defend some of this jungle, as On has become a second jungler here for Shun as they go and take some of these camps away. So the critical advantage here that BLG has right now is they can use this control of the top side of the map to take money away from Owner, take camps away from him. He's already a very slow clearing champion in the Sejuani. With how quickly Zyra can clear this, she can just simply take these buffs and go back, look for a gank potentially, or just go to his side of the map and clear blue. And Owner is going to be so low eco in this game.
Yeah, Owner is definitely in a rough situation. Of course, Keria keeping his eye on exactly what's going on here. Zeus really wants to be able to clear out these minions. On going to hook his way in, but I don't think they're looking for a dive. No one really capable of tanking turret shots here towards the top side of the map, as we do have a little bit of a pause here. We'll have to get full information as to what has actually happened, and hopefully we can jump onto the Rift once again as soon as possible. But already, there is a lot to dissect about how this early game has begun. And Wolf, I want to start by having a brief conversation about lane swaps, because lane swaps were a thing that were very prevalent at MSI. If you're one of these watchers of League of Legends esports that sort of skips domestic leagues and just goes from international to international, you might be like, well, this is normal, guys. This is exactly how we enjoy our League of Legends. It's lane swaps all over the place. No, that was sort of changed, right?
Yeah, they basically changed it so that you can't get as much value out of lane swaps. We've seen a lot of changes over the years to lane swaps, turret plates, the ability to get gold by swapping lanes and throwing a top laner off, making it so that if you're late on the swap, if you react late, they end up getting a massive advantage. We saw this happen at MSI where lane swaps were so prevalent that teams were kind of always guessing / assuming, and I think a lot of people didn't enjoy that aspect of League of Legends. Myself, I was totally fine with it because it was new, it was different, but it has been changed quite substantially, so it's not as strong as it used to be. But in this particular case, in this game, Zeus ends up picking Zeri, and I think initially T1 didn't expect the lane swap to come through. They were like, oh, I'm going to play this Zeri into the K'Sante, but then the Ezreal comes topside, and this gives BLG this insane edge because they're the ones who had this plan. T1 have to be the ones to react to it. They have the faster clearing jungle, which means that Shun can get massive advantages off of this surprise. They end up getting that early kill on the Owner. Had he known, had he been able to react, or if he was able to back off, for example, get out of there, it wouldn't have been as big of a lead, but he's both caught and his jungle is taken away. So huge advantages here to the side of BLG. Now, we might get a replay, I assume we will, of what happened when the teleport came through. It was probably just a follow-up Zenith Blade from Keria. They burst down the K'Sante. Yep. That was a bit of a blunder. He wanted to greedily go straight bottom lane to pick up that farm as the wave was crashing, but ends up dying for it. And without teleport, it's going to take him a long time to get back to lane. With the turret shots coming through, at least Keria and Guma will have to reset, so it won't be as big of an issue as it could have been, but that's what you get when you dive into turret level 1.
No, exactly, and they managed to crash the wave as well, so losing all of that experience at the same time after falling down, so definitely a big advantage to Gumushi and Keria. Of course, Keria moving now towards the top side of the map to assist his top laner / AD carry, and both of them have barrier, so I guess it's not even like you've got a top AD champion, right, who would just have teleport in that instance. It is just there are 2 AD carries for T1, and there are a couple of ways to think about it, right? Because like, we know that AD carries are very, very strong. As Owner is looking for a little bit of a gank here. Still level 3 is Bin has a lot of options for escape, and he's going to use a few of them here and make it out just fine. Still, Ona making his presence known. Knight coming down into the river here, and Ona just desperate to collect himself some shellfish. He'll be able to take this one into the banana brush and claim it. So not too far behind, although, well, actually, by not too far behind, I mean, he's still very far behind.
Yeah, he's half the camps right now of Xun will force Knight to just rocket jump away here. And Owner right now, not sitting on a lot of gold, obviously, but still with his base stats will be able to make an impact in these lanes if he can make a gank happen, but it's going to require a lot of control. We see Bin is actually heading back to the top lane. We are going to see a rotation of Elk and On back to bottom lane here. And it looks like we're going to a certain extent, now normalize in this game. Look at the huge lead, though, that Xun has in the jungle. In terms of experience right now, he's actually was for a bit #1 with this fast clear. And what Zyra can do with this, if you have a little bit of control, post 6 is set up dives in the bottom lane. Xun's getting much closer now to that critical level 6. Duma and Keria, though, will be able to shove this in and get out.
Yeah, this is pretty dangerous for Gumayusi and Keria because, of course, Xun can assist dives, feels much better if you've got the opposition right there underneath your turret. So T1 giving the respect as you would expect there. 400 gold going to be the advantage here so far from BLG. So still able to utilize that early map movement, the late invade really paying off here in this game #1. And funny business on both sides. T1 from the draft and BLG in the gameplay.
The real question becomes, where would you rather have your lead? You know, would you rather have a 650 gold advantage on your jungle Zyra, or would you rather have a 300 gold advantage on your Zeri? We'll see if they can compound this advantage a little bit further here for Zeus, because he has that range advantage here. So you can see trading aggressively, trying to put some damage onto Bin. I'd go with the Zeri, because the Sejuani behind here will still be relevant later on in the game to set up the CC, set up Keria. As look at the spacing here for Zeus, just so clean, so well practiced on this really cool snipe tech R5 pick with the Zeri coming through.
Yeah, it's really, really cool. I actually feel like watching the difference in gameplay as well, where most of the time, of course, obviously, the Kasante's level 4, so you don't really need to worry about it, but normally you want to stay away from walls when you're fighting a Kasante, and what a Zeri wants to do is stay as close to walls as possible. And I think that that is still going to be the case for Zeus in this game, just because if he gets all outed, he then just has a very comfortable way of getting back out of the situation, as Extendo Beam is going to do a bit of damage here onto On. Grasping Roots not really connecting there as Faker gets rid of Knight from that mid lane. A bit quiet in the mid lane, as it were. So still going to be able to grab himself a grub. And no harm, no foul here.
Really important that T1 were able to deny that second grub, because while they won't have a lot of control with this Kasante pick, obviously the Tristana will wreak havoc on turrets the more of those Void Grubs she can stack up. So really, really important for Knight to have those under his belt early. And they will be able to pick up 2/3 of them, but a good deny there by T1. And when you look at the gold lead right now, BLG has a significant one, right? A lot of that on the Zyra, some of that on the kill that On picked up at level 1.
Yep.
But in terms of where we are in the game, still a very even game state here. We haven't seen a team fight just yet. Another thing to note in this very weird game, just kind of pointing out all the weird intricacies of it, is that because Zeus doesn't have teleport and Bin does, maintaining that topside control and control of side lanes is going to be so paramount for Zeus, because he won't be able to join team fights at a moment's notice the way Bin can, nor can he interrupt Bin's teleport with Zeri's kit.
Yeah, I mean, it's exactly the same thing that sort of happened to Owner, right? You're talking about the fact that it doesn't really matter as much that he's behind, because he's a tank jungler. He's going to be able to do his job as the game goes on. I think you could argue that Xun having a lot of money is actually still fantastic, because he's Zyra, and even if he dies, if he does a bajillion damage before doing so, it is also a good thing as well. But I think Bin should be able to mirror that. You mentioned having the teleport means that he can take care of side lanes and still be there for the team fights, and we know that Bin in team fights is incredibly scary at the same time. So I think it's going to come down to what this next team fight is going to look like, as BLG look to take the first dragon of the game. Looks to be uncontested here as well, as the Chemtech Drake is going to be taken down. So first one going to be a Chemtech, second one going to be a Cloud. So no Cloud Soul, I'm a bit sad about that, but that's fine. Don't get everything. There's a flash from Ona. Gets the flash out of Xun here as well, as Faker avoids the Strangle Thorns. Xun going to get rocketed in the face, and Faker is going to be able to grab that kill. Now T1 moving ahead in the kill score, and actually ahead in gold as well.
Yeah, I think this is a really calculated play here from T1. Owner sticking around the Dragon Pit, maybe expecting that BLG would try to turn it into something more, since it was just that solo Chemtech Dragon. being able to shadow, make sure there's no dive set up there onto Guma, but then seeing an opportunity with Faker having that angle. The angle on the Valkyrie there was fantastic as well, avoiding the big ultimate coming through. It's going to force a flash out of Shun. Slow comes through. Faker's angle here means that, yes, he does get caught by the root, but isn't actually hit by the ultimate. He's just on the edge of it there. Ends up being able to follow up on the play. Big true shot barrage from Elk. Almost peels enough, but it's not quite.
There's the Zenith Blade in. Shield of Daybreak comes down. Immediate cleanse on the Solar Flare. As Elk continuing up the damage. There is the massive ult through from Gumayushi. But Honor's just going to flash his way out. Elk continuing to deal damage. And the Ezreal is the one that is going to find the most advantage in this play.
Fantastic peel from On in that situation. Doesn't even have level 6 just yet, but able to keep both Keria and Guma at bay. And as his shield expires, Guma thinks he maybe has the damage to go in there. Doesn't quite. He has barrier, so, you know, he would have been able to maybe potentially extend that trade, but unfortunately Elk's health just a little bit too high. He's not able to actually capitalize the way he was looking for there.
Yeah. Definitely a very aggressive player. I wasn't expecting the killer instinct from Gumayushi off the back of that one. Didn't feel like the setup was quite there, but he saw a window. On was able to answer very, very nicely. And taking these summoner spells over and over again, going to be very, very important as Gumayushi does complete his first item on making his way over, as Faker has a lot of friends in his lane. Keria moving over as well on full vision at the same time as the Grasping Roots will connect. Of course, Eclipse is just completely ridiculous, so that's going to avoid taking too much damage here. And BLG taking control once again.
Keria on a good angle here. Solar Flare back up. They need to respect this, and I don't think they can actually break through this choke point anymore. Guma returning as well here, and this is going to be 3 more grubs. It looks like going to T1, no contest whatsoever. Elk trying to push out this top side, but Guma can clean that up. Zeus will match the Cassante push bottom side. I think Bin picked up a plate or two. Yes, he did. You can see it picture-in-picture there. Nice attempted steal by Elk, but he's in trouble.
Yeah, going to be able to Arcane Shift out as Ona. Just Arctic Assault away, so not wanting to greed for the final grub. And so that is going to be a pretty even trade between the two, as you can see at the top of the screen right there. 3 grubs apiece on both sides. Of course, Tristana very happy to have a few grubs, but stopping her from getting to 4 is going to feel pretty good, as Phosphorus Bomb going to be avoided here by Knight. Pretty quiet as far as the BLG mid laner is concerned, and that has been what we've been kind of hearing about Knight so far this season. As Zeus actually going to get caught as he tries to dash away. The Q comes out. There's the ulti, as All Out is going to be utilized here by Bin. Decides instead, doesn't want to try and tango with the Zeri at this point in time. Just a trade of ultimates here for the top laners.
Yeah, once you've used your Q3 there's not much else Bin can offer here. You got Zeus' ultimate as Knight once again trading with Faker. Faker having a fantastic laning phase here. We haven't seen too much of it, and it hasn't been Faker crushing the lane, but he is winning Corki versus Tristana. Somewhat of a rarity in the LCK. As you can see, Keria and Ona are looking for potential picks. Shun.
Yeah, Ona moving on over, finds the Glacial Prison there as they at least managed to land the Stranglethorns, but Zeus will come over and just executes the Zyra. Caught in her jungle, and T1 really starting to take control now.
Yeah, Zeri just utilizing that extra push, taking the opportunity to go over there and look for a assist on the gank there, as Bin does have teleport back up. We'll be able to get back to the top lane, actually looking for the river, or sorry, bottom lane, looking for the river TP there, but not going to punish the back of Zeus. So strange to see a Zeri in the bottom lane as a side lane, as an 80 carry top, but that's the world we're living in, at least here in game 1. And a successful pick there onto Shun. He tries to ult his way out of it, but does not have flash, so nothing really he can do there. Second dragon of the game, the Cloud Dragon you mentioned, is up in 30 seconds here. And this is going to be a big sticking point here for T1. If they give 2 dragons, that is potentially going to be a big problem if the Soul is relevant with Chemtech already there. Big chance.
Yeah, Zeus once again going to be ulting. Ona moving on over as Bin's going to have to flash this time, but the Arctic Assault will still collect the knock-up. And Bin, nowhere to go, no chance. And Zeus, he gets another one. And Wolf, are we getting towards certification territory?
Yeah, I think I'm ready to stamp it. I mean, 2 kills to this area in the top lane. And it's a bit of a puzzling choice. I mean, Bin just greeting super hard for plates there, sticks around. They have no control over the Dragon Pit. Now they have even less as there's wards everywhere. As they're going to try to make a topside cross map here onto Faker. He's got Flash and Valkyrie.
Yep, Depth Charge going to start this dive up. It's a fantastic Valkyrie to get Faker out of the way, but I don't know whether he's going to survive this one. There's the Stranglethorns, and there is the kill. As, oh, the sacrifice from Shun. Is that an execute or was that actually a kill? I didn't actually
didn't see.
My brain didn't process it.
I think it was a kill.
1 and 0, so I think it was a kill. So
yeah,
just a 1-for-1. That is going to be Drake going over to T1. And so probably not the worst death here for T1. Probably typing some worths in all chat, you could say.
Especially considering it's an Infernal Dragon coming over here, or the Infernal Soul, excuse me, as our soul for this one. So T1 are able to deny the 2 Drake stack here for BLG. And it's really tough to dive a Corki. Obviously very squishy, but pretty mobile, so could buy a ton of time there, and Shun will have to trade his life. And the gold lead he had is diminished quite significantly, down to just 187 now, 100 to his name.
I've
and
seen this one before, Wolf.
And the value isn't as, okay, Ben, pushing up, man.
We're dashing over the wall here. Is Zeus Gumushi going to come down as well? There are too many 80 carries in this game. The Rift Herald will be taken here by BLG, but they'll have to sacrifice Bin for it. Zeus taking a fair bit of damage, but is ultimately on a killing spree at the end of it. So Rift Herald collected here by Shun. We'll see whether Bin's sacrifice is going to be in vain or not as they get to work on the top side of the map.
Zeus should be able to finish off this turret. I mean, the first of the game before that Herald gets dropped. I mean, they have a 3-grub Tristana here, so they may be able to answer in return. But with Keria here, setting up a dive is going to be so tricky. They don't even commit to it. Is trying to find Ona or anybody here, but they're already caught.
Yeah, Glacial Prison comes down, and once again, Shun's just going to explode. No way out, and they are picking on this extremely squishy Zyra that just seems to be overextending now in this game.
And I understand the thought process here for Shun and for BLG. You lost the bottom turret, you lost your top laner in the side lane. You've got to make a cross map happen. Faker used his flash in the last play. Maybe you could drop Heraldish. You got to group, you got to push deep into the jungle. But T1 were already one step out of the play. They kill Bin, instantly reset and head straight to top lane because they know that's BLG's only option to try to make a cross map. And with the Herald being taken, they knew they had that extra buffer of time to get there. And now this game is wide open for T1. What was a small deficit early with the lane swap shenanigans ends up not really working out for BLG long term. It's a 3,000 gold lead for T1 now. A 3-kill Zeri can clear these waves so incredibly quickly. And Bin, you know, Cassante, we've talked about in the past what he can do with very little stats, with very little items, with low econ and lane swaps before. But against the Zeri, it's a different story.
Yeah, I agree. I think that T1 have thrown the correct spanner in the works. And as we know, they do like to experiment. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. This time it's Knight that's caught in a pretty poor position, but he's Tristana. So he has Rocket Jump, which is a ludicrous ability, and he's going to get out just fine. 50% health, but still going to be able to clear out the wave and get all that work done. Zeus has taken an inner turret on the bottom side of the map. Yeah, that's a thing that can happen at 16.5 minutes, so I guess, Wolf.
Zeri actually does clear turrets pretty quickly. You know, with her Q, she can just kind of zap them down, and she does a lot of damage to them. She has 3 grubs as well, but she has Shiv as well, and she's had it for a while, but Static Shiv isn't really consistently built in the top lane, especially in a tank meta like this where we have very slow clear. There's not a lot of split pushing happening.
He's not a top laner.
Yeah, I mean...
We've just got 280 carries. That's just how it is.
You mean 3?
Sorry, yes, 3. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, Corki has been in mid lane for long enough for me to... I can at least conceptualize it. I can't conceptualize a Zeri as a top laner. I refuse.
It's just crazy the value he's gotten out of it when given those kills by Bin. I mean, been really trying to greed for some plate gold there with the deficit he had. You can understand the thought process of why he would want to push up. Thought T1 were gone, but those 3 deaths really stacked up against him now. And you have a fed Zeri who now already has Shield Bow online here at 17 minutes. You have a Kaisa that also has insane wave clear with the Shiv. And this Corki that's so powerful in the mid game with Triforce. Shun?
That's probably not exactly what Zeus wanted, is he's going to have to flash out of the Stranglethorns. Of course, Shun still does a fair bit of damage here as Elk able to sidestep the Glacial Prison. I say... Azona is probably going to miss that one, actually, as True Shot Barrage is going to sail towards Faker and Carrier, but it's not going to take out any of these minions, and Knight's not going to be able to protect his turret here, as it will go down. So Faker and Carrier getting themselves some plate gold, some turret gold here towards the top side, as BLG once again roaming up, but perhaps a little bit too late here as Carrier is going to get missed by the hook, but still, they are going to get there. The Eclipse is eating a fair bit of this, but still Shun is going to be able to grab the kill onto the Leona. And BLG answering back, trying to take whatever they can here on the Rift that is left for them. Bin taking some damage from Zeus once again, but he's just going to dash himself away. Doesn't want to mess with this Zeri at all.
Finally, the Herald maybe going to get something done here in mid lane. Still a pretty healthy turret. We'll see how much they can take out. They're all grouped
Yeah, that is going to be a bit of an interruption here as Shun is able to land the grasping roots onto Owner. He's going to flash, gets himself out of there as Faker teleporting right into the thick of things. Zeus is turned up as well, and Faker kind of frontlining on this one, taking Mystic shots. True Shot Barrage is going to get flashed by Faker, and that is a good amount of respect. That thing does so much damage.
Great usage of the Herald here to set up for the Dragon. Faker, unfortunately, basically tanking all of that aggro to save the turret there. Isn't going to be able to make an impact. Did back. Of course, doesn't have TP anymore. Flash now down, and BLG will be able to take this one away. A great play. And it's all set up. Oh,
that's a flash. Gumayusi going to have to flash in response as well as Keria just a little bit late to the play. And that is going to be out of turret in mid lane as well as that Dragon. And BLG fighting back brilliantly, also getting some space here on the bottom side, and it feels like the tempo has shifted so quickly in favor of BLG off the back of that Herald play.
Yeah, and it all comes down, I mean, it starts off, it's a set of dominoes. Remember the top side turret being taken there by T1. True Shot Barrage came out from Elk, interrupts Keria's back, then he's delayed, then he's caught, then Herald gets dropped, and these dominoes start falling very quickly for T1. Their gold lead, for the most part, was in those kills onto Bin, and then the turrets they took early. So many turrets available here for BLG to catch up on gold. They pick up 2 of them in quick succession there, the Dragon as well as that kill onto Keria. They're back in the game. Still a huge gold lead here, still a big Zeri problem to contend with, but at least fighting back to a certain extent here. I still give a huge edge to T1 in the current game state, but BLG showing that they can play the map, they can punish T1.
Absolutely, and I think that if you have a look at what this is going to turn into in the late game as well, I do think that BLG's team fighting is going to be absolutely terrifying. We know Tristana does so much damage as this game goes on. New items on the previous patch and just here in this season have really benefited her. And so she is going to be really, really huge, despite what people say about how Knight has been playing. Elk on this Ezreal as well. We know how good he is as a Grasping Roots is going to land once again. Stranglethorn's avoided, but it splits T1 and gets a whole bunch of flashes and cooldowns. See whether BLG can find an opportunity. Killer Instinct here from Gumayusi. Solar Flare gets flashed, and we're running out of these flash buttons on both teams now. But once again, it's not going to be a decisive fight.
Bin is going to get some extra time in the bottom lane here with all of this fighting here in exchange of those summoners. Does have his teleport available, so can just sit down here, get some additional gold, get some additional experience. So I think overall still a pretty big win here for BLG, especially for Bin. But a nice strike back there from T1, and On has just done such a great job of absorbing the pressure and peeling for his squad. When we see these re-engages come through for T1, Knight should be able to get out of here just fine. Doesn't have a turret, but he has a jungler nearby.
Yep, and he's in Fog of War as, okay, Shun, he was also in Fog of War, going to throw the Grasping Roots towards Owner. As the plants are getting up, just a fight for the Rift Scuttler. Owner's going to win that one with his Smite. Knight not going to be able to kill the Sejuani or anything like that. Pretty tanky now, getting very close towards his Warmogs after that Zeke's completion. And True Shot Barrage just checking to see whether there are any people in the Tri-Brush.
Now, it has been an LPL classic to start early Barons with this Zyra jungle pick, and I don't think he quite has the items just yet to be doing that, but they do have a lot of control for this, and T1 need to continue to group here. Faker, no teleport just yet, but coming up soon, but he has to rotate over, and BLG just fishing for a pick, fishing for T1, trying to clear vision, threatening this Baron here. It's going to allow them to take out their 3rd turret of the game here. And I gotta say, BLG from a pretty massive deficit have used this teleport that Bin's been holding, have used this control of the top side of the map to gain pretty significant advantages, and T1 have been a little bit slow to respond. You have 380 carries, but you only have a front line and a half. With that Leona, obviously you can tank a decent amount, but it's really hard to set up those engages for Kai'Sa when you don't have control, when you don't have vision.
And this is a thing that T1 have done for many, many years as well. It's picking for lane. It's making sure that you've got these answers to really get yourself stepped into a good position in the mid game. And sometimes they sacrifice composition in order to do so. I think the T1's comp still team fights quite well. You've got so many threats that you can sort of play around, and Leona and Sejuani will have so much CC just themselves that you can see how a team fight will play out. I do think, though, like you say, the teleport from Bin is going to prove more and more valuable as this game goes on, as far as controlling the map, and as these really valuable neutrals get more and more vulnerable to the amount of items that these players are picking up. I think that Bin being able to push in a side lane until he's required is going to be very, very strong.
I think the LDR pickup here for Zeus is a really big spike for him into this Cassante and is going to make it a little bit easier for him to team fight front to back as long as they can set up the counter engage coming through. But it, again, relies a lot on vision control. Time's running out on this spawn of the second Infernal Dragon. Now, T1 more grouped bottom side here. Faker has his teleport back. They were able to get vision on the Baron here, so I don't think it's going to be a trade of objectives, but BLG are definitely fishing with the idea of this. They do have that Zyra. They do have pretty fast clear here, so T1 constantly having to stay vigilant between both objectives here. And they have no real map control. They've got great follow-up for a Sejuani ult, for example, for a Solar Flare. They've got some poke coming through from Guma now, but here we go, starting this up. Full control for Baron.
Shun is going to annoy Baron just a little bit here, who's just going to be one-shotting these plants. Does get rid of them. So going to replace those seeds, but does collect the Rift Scuttle vision, which is what BLG were looking for in that moment. Now just keeping control of mid. Playing this one out, seeing who can get that push, who can then get the right leg up in these river positions, be it around Baron or around the Dragon, making things very dark for T1 though.
Yeah, you can see the Observer showcasing how little vision there is here for T1. Even the Ezreal ult is significant poke here.
Oh yeah.
And Elk is just kind of playing with his range advantage right now. Zeri, fairly low range, obviously, outside of her Extendo Beam, but Elk can continue to push these waves through. And T1 just aren't able to skirt around. And this buys enough time now for the Dragon start for BLG. So Tristana, another power of Tristana, she can do Dragons very quickly with this Zyra. T1 will clear vision, but they don't have the speed to trade this. So they're unfortunately just going to have to give the Dragon up. But it's just been mid-prio that T1 has been so far behind on. You can really feel the weight of the lack of teleport here for Zeus in this game.
No, I agree. I actually think that it's starting to become a little bit of a worry. The apprehension that you're sensing here for T1 makes a bit of sense, and BLG a little bit more decisive with these plays in the neutral. Now moving towards this top side, and what we want to see is a little bit more of the T1 we saw in the early game, right? The T1 that was making proactive plays, that was just going for it and pulling the trigger. That's what gave them their initial advantage, and now they're trying to hold onto it instead of pushing it forward. True Barrage going to sail by. That's going to get some extra vision, which is, I assume, what it was looking for.
And stopping any single back there could have staggered T1 to a situation where, you know, Keria has to then flash out or something like that, and then it's just an easy Baron start here for BLG. But again, T1 walk away with no vision. Now, the weight is on Faker's shoulders in terms of dealing with this bottom lane because he's the one who's got the teleport. He's the one who could be far from Baron, whereas otherwise you see T1 are just constantly grouped, constantly fighting for vision, which means Ezreal gets to keep pushing these mid waves in, and it's a constant juggle of vision that BLG is winning. They have the 2 Infernal Drake advantage, so that's some additional stats for the Ezreal poke as well, really starting to be a big problem here for T1. With a gold lead, it looks like T1 are in a great position. 3 items there, but we're just not having a straight up 5v5 fight. BLG are not allowing it.
Yeah, Ona now possibly out of position. Does have Keria there, but there's no real damage follow-up unless they can create some plasma here for Gumayusi to react to. There is a snare, and the Void Seeker not going to connect. Hook as the re-engage does come in. Glacial Prison is decent, but the shutdown onto Zeus immediately, and BLG, they might use this to start off the Baron. At least Elk, that's what he's decided he wants to do. Still, Void Seeker is going to make it seem like it may not be the best decision to make, and BLG looking for a turn instead. More poke coming through here, as the more you hit, the more you can throw. Gumayusi still just firing them out willy-nilly. Still, it's going to be a wait for Zeus to come back up. 25 seconds on that one.
Yeah, no teleport, no barrier for this fight if it does break out, but at least the Void Seekers, like you say from Guma here, the accuracy of them good enough to actually deny BLG from starting this up. But you know, Atlas told you already, Zeus, you're not a top laner, you're not a tank, you can't be that far up on Zeri into a Nautilus. He got punished so hard with his positioning there. Again, it's not something we normally see Zeus play. In fact, we've never seen him play it professionally here. He's pulling it out at the Esports World Cup. It gets punished, his first death of the game, and that control for BLG does continue.
And that's a lot of money going over to the carries of BLG as well. Elk going to go back and complete his Bloodthirster. So 3 items done for both 80 carries on either side. Gumayusi and Elk is who I'm referring to there. Zeus has had 3 items for quite some time. But Nash's Tooth and, of course, the Ginsus and Static Shiver are a bit cheaper than what has been put together here by Elk so far, as T1 possibly looking for a fight, but on so incredibly tanky. 1-0-3 on this Nautilus, and he is feeling like an actual tank.
Yeah, it's looking like a Senna Nautilus situation here with how well On has peeled this game, how incredibly well he's played around these choke points. Sendo Beam going to hit him pretty hard in this moment here, but he's got the Warmog, so not going to feel too bad about that. You know, meanwhile, Elk continuing to control this mid lane, out-pushing the Kai'Sa consistently as he just offers more and more poke. Even with True Shot Barrage, you can see these Qs really stacking up.
Yeah, well, another Glacial Prison goes down here as Faker just going to grab that kill onto On, and as we praise him, we caster curse him. And he is going to be taken out there. So one killed on the side of T1 into one killed on the side of BLG. BLG weren't able to push the envelope too far after their last pick. We'll see what T1 can do with theirs.
It's such a neutral fight here over Baron Vision. It just continues to rotate, and one pick alone isn't enough to actually wrestle it back. In fact, it's often the team that gets the pick that uses more resources than has to pick up some items, and then the other team juggles it back. And we're just constantly playing Ring Around the Rosie here in this River Brush. BLG now taking their back timer. T1 will rotate over and grab control. We're going to move back to this moment On. Really far forward here, not completely cleared that ward, but hitting it there gave Owner the information. He could look for that pick there, so well played by him. Good punish onto On after our little caster curse. But this really reminds me of the old, like, when Shiv first came out, we were seeing everybody build Shiv, and it was Shiv LeBlanc in the mid lane. It was just teams trading waves against each other. Does feel like that a little bit here, but BLG have constantly maintained that control, and the gold lead has shrunk ever so little. Every single one of these rotations, BLG is getting the better trade of it. T1 no longer really in the driver's seat.
No, and especially not if they lose out on this Drake, because that's Infernal Soul. BLG with a lot of control of the map right now because they can give up a Drake. You know, not the end of the world. T1, they cannot afford to. Giving away 3 Infernals and Soul is just kind of ridiculous. As T1, you can see, positioned to try and take this one down, and they're going to be fighting for the death for this one. As let's see who's going to be able to take it here. Shun taking some poke damage, and these Void Seekers also starting to do a fair bit as well. The rotation around from the Zeri, but the Dragon is down very, very low. There's a Killer Instinct. They take down the Jungler, but can they win the fight is the question. That's the Dragon secured for T1. Keria is just taking Bin for a ride, and the rest of BLG are just melting. Now the top lane is going to do battle. Yeah, Bin's going to win those as he walks into melee range of the Cassante. Still, it's going to be a one-team fight, and still T1 are going to look towards this Baron.
Yeah, T1, they win more than just the Dragon. They'll get that Baron. You know, you lose a support, you lose a pseudo top laner in Zeus' Zeri. It doesn't matter, though. T1 have the damage to rush this Baron down. There's no one left, really, to contest. Only Bin stands on the graves of his teammates. Just look at how this fight sets up. Look at where Zeus is. He's not even here initially. It's just a great collapse onto Shun, and T1's target selection in this fight is fantastic. Then Zeus swoops in. Knight can't actually turn or carry. Bin is denied entry back into the fight. This might have been a bridge too far. Unfortunately, Zeus walking straight into that Q3. But a great target selection onto Shun, taking the Zyra out of the fight, guaranteeing the Dragon, then having that follow-up, making sure Knight just doesn't have any agency, no way to pop off. And it's, Guma feeling pretty good, I think, about the secure on the Dragon. Sorry, Owner feeling pretty good about the secure on the Dragon.
Yep. And Owner looking like he just managed to secure the Baron as well. So as you can see, Baron going to be up for 2.5 minutes here. We'll see what T1 can do with it. See whether they can actually break open this game, because T1 have been the team that have found so many advantages in this game, but it always feels like BLG then find ways to take back control of how this map is going to be played. And so now with this advantage, with the Baron, they should be able to grab some push here. And the outer turret still standing in mid lane should be the first target here for T1. There's an inner on the top side of the map as well, but to really open up the map, it has to be through mid.
It does have to be through mid.
Yeah, we'll be taking down some of these wards around the map. Shun gonna get slowed down. There's a Glacial Prison as well. Special delivery of Gumayushi with the Killer Instinct, and there goes the Zyra. Massive tanking being done here by Keria, but can't tank absolutely everything in the kitchen sink. And so he will go down, but jungler for support, you take those, especially if you get a turret along with it.
Absolutely, and that's just going to allow Zeus to push this top lane in as well. And this is really, again, great target selection by T1. Guma's constantly fishing for those Void Seekers because Owner is standing next to the Zyra. So look at the positioning here. Solar Flare comes out, you've got the Killer Instinct here instantly to follow it out, and then when the Sejuani ult comes through, he's as good as a dead man. Does try to get out, does flash, and will take Keria with him. But so much control gained off of this one single pick. Again on the jungler, 6 deaths on this squishy Zyra.
And after such an incredible early game as well, as Bin is going to find the knockback onto Ona, but skating on in is Zeus. Bin now just going to have to book it out of there. On in so much trouble, walking the wrong direction. Ona going to finish him off. And T1, they're starting to knock them down now, starting to get a feel for how this game is moving closer and closer to a victory for them. And they'll push this wave towards the inner turret and really expose BLG's side of the map now.
Yeah, let's see if they can actually grab this inhibitor with the last 30 seconds of the Baron. They really want this.
Yep, Solo going to set up for the Zenith Blade. It's a decent Stranglethorns, but he's still going to go down. The follow-up just not going to be there. Another Glacial Prison, great buffer there from the Tristana, but Knight not able to offer any damage back, and that's going to be base broken by T1.
I think they want more.
Yeah, they ain't stopping here. There is still 15 seconds on this Baron buff. They're going to take at least one of these Nexus turrets as the minions are starting to run out. 4 members of BLG sitting here on their Nexus. And T1 still trying to push forward. Keria, not sure about that one, but I like the gusto. Has been in a whole host of trouble. Faker taking matters into his own hands, but not enough damage to kill the Cassante just yet. Turret shots just raining down as Elk landing these pot shots and starting to make these health bars look a little bit lower.
Oh, the teleport flank from Bin.
Big old flank from Bin as he dives in towards Ona. I don't think Ona's too worried. The all-out does come through. If they kill the Sejuani, it may not necessarily be end of the world. 53 seconds on Infernal Soul for BLG though. And so T1 are going to have to book it. As soon as Ona's spawned, they got to get to that dragon.
Yeah, they're going to have to rush through. You can see even with the super minion here, Elk is rushing as fast as he can, using True Shot Barrage to clear this mid wave so they can get prio for said dragon. Knight does not have teleport, but he's going to opt to back here to buy that 4th item. Now has it picked up. He's got an insane amount of damage he could do if given the agency. And well, I think all eyes are going to be on Shun here. This is a great play from Bin to come over here and look for the stop of the retreat here. Going to take Owner out of the fight. Now we'll see if this ends up mattering at the end of the day here when that fight breaks out. But obviously advantage BLG. They have the prio. And this is not just for an Infernal Dragon. It's for Soul for them. T1, no objective to trade for, but it looks like with no prio, no teleport on Faker, they're just going to opt to give this up. And I can't blame them for the choice. They have mid control with the inhibitor down. They can maybe grab a second one. That's the goal here if they can get it down quickly enough. But I think trying to walk head first into that BLG composition without prio was just not going to be a successful strategy. They won't get this inhibitor. Bin shows up, stops them from taking it down, and T1 walk away with nothing.
Yeah, not going to be able to get too much here, and Infernal Soul is a huge sacrifice for T1, and I imagine they are not too excited about heading towards an Elder Flip scenario.
No, definitely not, especially when you consider how powerful Elk is going to be. He has a Spear of Shojin now in his inventory. He can constantly poke and then set up to come in and collapse for the kills here. I think all eyes going to be on Shun when we do get to that potential Elder fight, which I do think will be the deciding moment in this game. But even before that, if he gets picked, he's the one who's consistently been the target here for T1. But otherwise, in neutrals, if he's not caught, no one else really can go down. On so tanky, and the poke here in neutral for Elk is much stronger than Guma's when you consider that Infernal Soul. 3 stacked Infernal Drakes. I mean, look at this, even alone, Guma's health bar going down pretty quick.
Yeah. It's absolutely terrifying. Doesn't have a whole lot of lifesteal in the build as well. Has gone for the full AP Kaiser to diversify that damage profile here on the side of T1. As Zeus, I hope for his sake that they're able to get a clean team fight, because we have been critical of Zeris that don't build GAs in the past. By in the past, I mean last week, maybe even less than a week ago. It was very recently. And we'll see whether he is going to be able to keep himself alive. It is massive damage potential here for the Zeri in the team fight. But if you lock her down, she could just be wiped out. And then T1 are without one of their very crucial AD carries in this next fight. See how he is going to be able to play this one out, sitting there with his Bloodthirster shield stacked up.
Yeah, looking for a big wraparound ult here. Could slide in. Potentially. Shin's positioning here relatively risky on the right side. Here we go.
Extendo beam, not quite going to land there. Neither is the Glacial Prison as BLG able to get themselves out of there. Bin at about 50% health, but he's the tank. He's not too worried. Solar Flare also not exactly hitting the sweet spot as Shun able to walk that one off as well. Still T1 winning in the damage trades.
Yeah, if you can hit every single Void Seeker onto squishy targets like Xun, I mean, this is going to really start to stack up. Corky Poke, not as strong as it used to be, but still relevant here as T1, I mean, the weight of the wallets, you can really feel it. Xun just trying to back away, get some healing. They're going to start the Baron. It's going to have to be a clean engage from On.
Yeah, there's the flash forward from On. Speaking of which, True Shot Barrage over everyone as Zenith played into the backline just to try to get rid of them. And now Gumayusi, that killer instinct really working out. Faker dashing in. It's a little bit split, but it's working as Gumayusi flashes over the wall. There's the double kill. T1 dealing with Bin on the top side. Zeus not going to be falling this time around. And T1, it's another team fight, and this one could be the end of the game.
Looks likely they're going to push down mid here. You see Zeus pushing top side, but he doesn't necessarily need to. He could just rush to join his teammates. They've got the clear here. Only one Nexus turret stands between T1 and winning the first game of the World Cup.
That's a big old flash forward as Knight's going to get slowed down. There's the Glacial Prison. Set him up and you knock him down. Carrier and Ona with some great initiation in this game. And there goes the first Nexus of the EWC League of Legends. T1 going to claim it. And BLG going to need to win the next one to stay in it.
What a game to start it off. Top, Zeri, lane swaps, crazy comebacks. I gotta say, on one hand, I almost was more impressed by BLG's performance in this game as an overall big picture, considering how far behind they were, the picks they found, how well they played around lane prio. But T1, the target selection again was so good, punishing Xun in those critical moments, bringing the game back, ending it there. The team fight that was super clean, and going way too deep onto one of 380 carries was a bit of a mistake, I want to say, for BLG.
Didn't quite work out, but ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a short break before the boys in the studio break it down.